right now, as you're listening to these words, your brain just did something incredible. In the last 5 seconds, you processed my voice, decided whether to keep listening, and made a split-second judgment about me. You didn't even realize it happened. But here's what's crazy. Every single day, you're in conversations where people are making that same lightning-fast decision about you. In job interviews, first dates, client meetings, even ordering coffee. And most people, they're losing before they even know the game started. I'm about to show you exactly how your mind works in those crucial moments, and more importantly, how to make sure you win every single time. Because when you understand the hidden patterns behind quick thinking and smooth talking, everything changes. Stick with me for the next 2 hours, and you'll never walk into another conversation the same way again. Welcome to Think Fast, Talk Smart. I need to tell you something right up front. This isn't going to be like other audiobooks you've listened to. You know the ones where someone drones on about theory for 3 hours and you walk away feeling inspired, but completely clueless about what to actually do? Yeah, this isn't that. What you're about to experience is something different. Think of it as mental training camp for your brain. Over the next hour, your mind is going to learn 7 skills that most people spend decades trying to figure out. First, you're going to discover how to process information at lightning speed. Not just faster, but with the kind of clarity that makes everyone else in the room wonder how you got so sharp. Second, we're diving into pressure responses. You know that moment when someone puts you on the spot and your brain just freezes? That's about to become a thing of the past. Third, those awkward silences that make you want to crawl under a table. You're going to learn how to turn them into moments of pure power. Then we get into the psychology of persuasion. Not manipulation, not tricks, but the genuine science of how minds connect and influence each other. And finally, we're building something inside you that can't be shaken. The kind of confidence that doesn't depend on the room, the people, or the situation. But here's the thing. This only works if you actually let it work. I need you to find a spot where you can really listen. Not while you're checking emails or doing dishes. This requires your full attention because what we're doing here, it's rewiring how your brain handles conversation. Some people call it mental training. Others call it communication surgery. I just call it necessary. Because every single day, you're walking into situations where words matter. Where thinking fast isn't just helpful, it's everything. Job interviews where they throw you curveballs. Social situations where you need to read the room instantly. Tough conversations where the wrong response costs you. Most people stumble through these moments hoping for the best. You're about to learn how to dominate them. So here's what I need from you. Close your eyes if you can. Let your mind focus completely on these words. Because what happens next isn't just listening. It's reconstruction. Your brain is about to learn patterns it's never noticed before. Shortcuts that cut through confusion. Techniques that turn hesitation into instant clarity. Are you ready? Good. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Neuroscience of Quick Thinking. Your brain is the most sophisticated processing machine in the universe. Right now, as I'm saying these words, your brain is doing something absolutely incredible. It's taking sound waves, converting them into electrical signals, matching them to stored patterns, creating meaning, and forming responses. All in milliseconds. But here's what nobody tells you. Most people are driving a Ferrari with the parking brake on. They've got this incredible machine between their ears, and they're using maybe 10% of its actual speed. Today, we're taking the brake off. The speed of thought. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone said something, and before they even finished talking, you already knew exactly what you wanted to say back? That's not luck. That's your brain working at full capacity. Your mind processes information in layers. The first layer, that's pure reaction. Someone insults you, and instantly you feel that flash of anger. That's your amygdala firing. It takes about 0.1 seconds. But here's where it gets interesting. Layer 2 kicks in at about 0.5 seconds. That's where your prefrontal cortex starts weighing options. Do I respond? Do I stay quiet? What are the consequences? Most people stop there. They think that's as fast as thinking gets. They're wrong. There's a third layer that most people never access. It happens when your brain stops fighting itself and starts flowing. I learned this the hard way in a boardroom in Chicago. Picture this. I'm 26 years old, sitting across from executives who've been in business longer than I've been alive. The CEO looks at me and says, "Your proposal is interesting, but our research shows your target demographic doesn't actually exist." Now, old me, I would have stuttered, made excuses, maybe even agreed with him. But something clicked. Instead of my brain scrambling for a defense, it went completely calm. And I heard myself say, "That's exactly why we're going to own this market. While everyone else is chasing demographics that do exist, we're creating the one that doesn't." Yet, silence. Then the so started laughing. When can you start? That's layer 3 thinking. When your brain stops reacting, stops calculating, and starts creating. The neural pathway looks like this. Information comes in. Instead of bouncing around your fear centers, it flows directly to your creative networks. Your brain starts making connections you've never made before. It's like the difference between a traffic jam and an open highway. But here's the secret. You can't force layer 3 thinking. The harder you try, the more you block it. It only happens when you stop being afraid of what you might say. Mental agility training. Okay, so how do you actually get there? First, we need to talk about cognitive flexibility. That's a fancy way of saying your brain's ability to switch between different ways of thinking. Most people's brains are like old radios. They get stuck on one station, and it takes forever to change channels. We're going to turn your brain into a digital tuner. Instant switching. Perfect clarity on every station. Here's how it works. Right now, I want you to think of a red car. Got it? Good. Now, think of a blue elephant. Now a green pizza. Notice what just happened? Your brain didn't hesitate. It didn't say, "Wait, I was thinking about cars, I can't switch to elephants." It just switched instantly. That's cognitive flexibility in action. But in conversation, most people get stuck. Someone mentions work, and their brain locks onto work topics. Someone brings up a problem, and they can only think about problems. Here's the first exercise that changes everything. It's called category jumping. Next time someone tells you about their problem, instead of immediately diving into problem-solving mode, force your brain to jump categories. They say, "I'm having trouble with my boss." Instead of going straight to advice, jump categories. Maybe to curiosity. What's the most interesting thing about your boss that nobody else sees? Or jump to comparison. Is this similar to other authority figures you've dealt with? Or jump to storytelling. This reminds me of something that happened to my friend. What you're doing is training your brain to see multiple angles instantly. Most people see one path forward. You're learning to see 7. Here's another technique that's even more powerful. I call it assumption reversal. Every conversation, your brain makes assumptions. This person is upset. They want advice. This is a serious conversation. What if you reversed every assumption? They seem upset. What if they're actually excited? They're asking for advice. What if they just want to be heard? This feels serious. What if there's humor hidden in here? I used this technique last month with a client who called me, absolutely panicked. The presentation tomorrow is going to be a disaster. The projector's broken, half the team can't make it, and I lost my notes. Normal response. "Oh no, let's figure out how to fix this." Assumption reversal response. Sounds like tomorrow just became your most memorable presentation ever. What if this is actually perfect? Long pause. Then she started laughing. "You know what? You're right. This could actually be way more engaging than another boring PowerPoint." The next day, she called me back. Standing ovation. Best presentation of her career. That's what happens when you train your brain to flip assumptions. But the most important agility skill is pattern interruption. Your brain loves patterns. Conversations follow patterns. "How are you?" "Fine, how are you?" That's a pattern. When you interrupt patterns, you wake people up. Instead of "How are you?" try what's the best thing that's happened to you this week. Instead of nice weather, isn't it? Try this weather makes me think of something. Do you have a favorite type of day? Pattern interruption doesn't just make conversations more interesting. It makes your brain more flexible. Every time you break a pattern, you're building new neural pathways. After a month of practice, your brain stops following scripts and starts improvising. The confidence-speed connection. Now here's something fascinating that most people completely miss. Confidence doesn't come from knowing what to say. Confidence comes from knowing you'll figure out what to say. There's a massive difference. When you're confident you know what to say, you're actually limiting yourself to pre-planned responses. You're stuck with whatever you prepared ahead of time. But when you're confident you'll figure it out, your brain stays loose, flexible, ready for anything. I discovered this during my worst public speaking disaster. I was giving a keynote to 500 people, had my entire speech memorized, every joke timed perfectly. 10 minutes in, someone in the audience raises their hand and asks a question that has nothing to do with my topic. My prepared brain froze. I stood there for what felt like 10 years, tried to get back to my script. Then something shifted. I looked at this person and said, "You know what? That's actually a way better question than anything I was planning to talk about. Let's explore that instead." And for the next 45 minutes, we had the most dynamic, engaging conversation. No script, no plan, just pure responsive thinking. That's when I understood. The confidence that matters isn't confidence in your material. It's confidence in your ability to respond to whatever comes up. Here's how to build that kind of confidence. Start small. In low-stake conversations, practice letting go of controlling the outcome. Your friend asks what you want for dinner. Instead of immediately suggesting something safe, pause and say, "I have no idea, but I'm curious what happens if we just start walking and see what we find." Your coworker mentions they're stressed. Instead of jumping to advice, tell me more about that. I'm curious how stress feels different for you than it does for me. What you're doing is building trust in your brain's ability to navigate unknown territory. Each time you do this, you're proving to yourself that you don't need a script to have a good conversation. But here's the secret that accelerates everything. Mental momentum. Your brain works like a car. It takes more energy to start from a stop than to keep moving. Most people stop their mental engine between every sentence. They think, evaluate, worry, then speak. Stop, start, stop, start. Instead, keep your mental engine running. Here's a technique I learned from improvisational actors. Never end a sentence with a period in your mind. End it with a comma. Instead of "that's interesting," think "that's interesting and," even if you don't know what comes after "and." Your brain will fill in the blank. Try it right now. Think about something that happened to you today. Now, instead of just thinking about what happened, think what happened was interesting and notice how your brain keeps going. That's mental momentum. When you maintain mental momentum in conversation, people feel it. They lean in. They get energized. Because momentum is contagious. When your brain is flowing, their brain starts flowing too. All right, let's make this real. You're in a job interview. They ask you a question you weren't expecting. Normal response? Panic. Stall. Give a weak answer. Quick thinking response. First, buy yourself 2 seconds. Not by saying, or "that's a great question," but by rephrasing what they asked. So you're asking about how I handle unexpected challenges. That gives your brain time to access layer 3 thinking. Second, use assumption reversal. They expect you to be defensive or give a perfect example. What if you did the opposite? I used to think I was terrible at handling surprises, but I realized that's actually my secret weapon. When I don't know what to expect, I pay attention differently. You've just turned a weakness into a strength using quick thinking principles. Here's another scenario. You're at a networking event. Someone asks what you do, and you realize your usual elevator pitch sounds boring even to you. Quick thinking approach. Skip the pitch entirely. That's interesting that you asked. Most people hate that question at these things. What's the most interesting thing about what you do that you never get to talk about? Now you've turned a standard exchange into a real conversation. Or this one, you're in a heated discussion with someone who disagrees with everything you're saying. Normal response? Argue harder. Present more facts. Quick thinking response. Use cognitive flexibility. I can tell you feel strongly about this, and I'm curious. What would have to be true for both of us to be right? You just shifted from opposition to exploration. Here are 3 daily exercises that will make quick thinking automatic. Exercise 1, the 2-second rule. Whenever someone asks you a question today, count 2 seconds before responding. Not to think of the perfect answer, but to let your brain settle into layer 3 thinking. Most people think silence is awkward. It's not. It's powerful. Exercise 2, opposite day. Once a day, when someone expects a normal response, give them the opposite. They complain about traffic. Instead of agreeing, say, "Traffic actually gives me time to think." What do you think about when you're stuck in your car? You're training your brain to see alternatives automatically. Exercise 3, the curiosity pivot. In every conversation today, instead of making one statement about yourself, ask one question about them. They mention they're tired. Instead of saying, "Me too," ask, "What does tired feel like for you? Is it physical or mental or something else?" This builds your brain's ability to shift focus instantly. Do these 3 exercises for 1 week. Just 1 week. And watch what happens to your conversations. People will start describing you differently. "She's so easy to talk to. He always knows what to say. There's something different about her." What they're noticing is a brain that's learned to think at full speed. Now that you understand how your mind can work at peak performance, let's explore how to channel that speed into powerful communication. Chapter 2, the architecture of smart conversation. Every conversation has an invisible structure. Think about the last conversation you had that felt effortless, where words flowed naturally, ideas connected perfectly, and you walked away feeling energized. Now think about the last conversation that felt like work, where you struggled to find the right words, felt misunderstood, and left feeling drained. The difference wasn't the topic. It wasn't the person. It was the architecture. Every great conversation follows a blueprint, not a rigid script, but a flexible framework that guides the flow of ideas and emotions. Most people stumble through conversations hoping they'll find their way. You're about to learn how to build them. Like a master architect who can design a building on any terrain, you'll learn to construct meaningful exchanges in any situation. Whether you're explaining a complex idea to your boss, connecting with someone new at a party, or navigating a difficult conversation with a family member, the architecture remains the same. The blueprint works everywhere. The clear framework. I discovered this framework the hard way. 3 years ago, I was asked to explain our company's new software to a room full of executives. I had 30 minutes to convince them to invest $3 million. I prepared for weeks. Had slides, statistics, projections. Everything you're supposed to have. 10 minutes into my presentation, I could see it in their faces. Confusion. Boredom. The CEO was checking his phone. I stopped mid-sentence and said, "This isn't working, is it?" Awkward silence. Then I tried something different. I walked to the whiteboard and drew a simple diagram. 5 boxes connected by arrows. Here's what our software does in 1 sentence. It takes the chaos of customer data and turns it into clear decisions. Here's why that matters. You're losing $2 million a year to bad decisions based on incomplete information. Here's how it works. 3 simple steps that your team can start using tomorrow. Here's why you should trust us. We've done this for companies just like yours, and here's what happened. Here's what happens next. You pilot this for 30 days, and if it doesn't save you money, you pay nothing. 15 minutes later, I had a handshake agreement for the full $3 million. That's when I realized every powerful response follows the same pattern. I call it the clear framework. C, concise. L, logical. E, engaging. A, authentic. R, relevant. Let's break it down. Concise doesn't mean short. It means no wasted words. Every sentence should move the conversation forward. If it doesn't add value, it doesn't belong. Listen to how most people answer simple questions. How was your weekend? Becomes a 5-minute monologue about traffic, weather, and what they had for breakfast. Clear response. Fantastic. I discovered this amazing hiking trail that made me feel like I was in a different world. What about you? Logical means your ideas connect. Each point should flow naturally to the next. Your brain understands this, but most people skip steps. They jump from A to D and wonder why people look confused. Build bridges between your ideas. That reminds me of, which brings up another point. The flip side of that is, engaging means you're not just talking at people, you're talking with them. Notice how I just asked you about your weekend? That's engagement. Every response should either answer a question or create curiosity for the next part. Your brain should be thinking, what does she mean by that? Or I want to know more. Authentic means it sounds like you. Not the professional you, not the perfect you, but the real you. People can smell fake from a mile away. Your authentic voice is your most powerful tool. If you're naturally funny, be funny. If you're naturally thoughtful, be thoughtful. If you're naturally direct, be direct. And relevant means it matters to the person you're talking to. This is where most people fail. They talk about what interests them, not what serves the conversation. Always ask yourself, why should they care about this? If you can't answer that question, don't say it. Here's how to use clear in real time. Someone asks you about your job. Instead of reciting your job description, use the framework. Concise. I help companies solve problems they didn't know they had. Logical. Most businesses focus on obvious issues, but the real money is in the hidden patterns. Engaging. For example, last month I discovered that a client was losing customers not because of price, but because of something completely unexpected. Authentic. I love detective work, and business is just detective work with spreadsheets. Relevant. What kind of hidden patterns do you notice in your work? See how that works. 5 elements. 1. Seamless response. Practice this once a day for a week, and it becomes automatic. Reading the room. Now, the best architecture in the world is useless if you build it on the wrong foundation. Before you structure your response, you need to read the room. Now, I don't mean guessing whether people are interested. I mean actually reading the micro signals that tell you exactly where everyone's mind is. Most people think they're good at reading people. They're not. They notice the obvious stuff. She seems upset. He looks bored. They're excited. But the real information is in the details most people miss. Let me teach you to see what others don't. First, forget about eye contact. Everyone knows to look for eye contact. Instead, watch the shoulders. When someone is truly engaged, their shoulders face you. Even if they're looking at their phone, if their shoulders are turned toward you, they're listening. When they're done with the conversation, their shoulders turn away first. Before their eyes, before their feet, the shoulders tell you everything. Second, listen to the pace of their breathing. When people are thinking, they breathe slower. When they're getting ready to speak, they take a slightly deeper breath. When they're stressed or excited, the breathing gets shallow and quick. You can literally hear when someone is ready for your next point versus when they need a moment to process. Third, watch their hands. Open palms mean they're open to your ideas. Closed fists or hidden hands mean they're resistant. Touching their face means they're processing something complex. Touching their neck means they're feeling vulnerable. Hands that mirror your gestures mean they're connecting with you. But here's the advanced technique. Don't just read the room. Influence it. If you notice someone's shoulders turning away, you can turn them back by changing your own body language. Lean in slightly. Lower your voice. Their shoulders will follow. If you see closed fists, open your own palms. Their hands will start to relax. If someone's breathing is shallow, slow down your own speech. They'll start breathing deeper. I learned this from a hostage negotiator. He told me, you can't control what people think, but you can influence how they feel. And how they feel determines how they think. Try this experiment. Next time you're in a conversation with someone who seems distracted, instead of talking louder or faster, do the opposite. Talk softer. Slow down. Make your gestures smaller and more deliberate. Watch what happens. Their attention will come back to you like a magnet. Because you're not fighting their energy, you're leading it. The power of pause. Most people are terrified of silence in conversation. They think it means something's wrong, that they're boring, that they need to fill the space with words. This is the biggest mistake you can make. Silence isn't empty space. It's the most powerful tool in your communication toolkit. When used correctly, silence creates anticipation, emphasizes important points, and gives people space to think. When used incorrectly, it creates anxiety and confusion. Here's the difference. Accidental silence happens when you don't know what to say. It feels uncomfortable because it is uncomfortable. Intentional silence happens when you choose not to speak. It feels powerful because it is powerful. Let me show you how to use silence strategically. First, the anticipation pause. When you're about to make an important point, pause right before you make it. I'm going to tell you something that will change how you think about this. Pause. Ready? That pause creates tension. People lean in. They pay attention. Second, the processing pause. After you've made a complex point, pause to let people absorb it. Don't rush to the next idea. Let the current one settle. 3 seconds of silence feels like forever to you. It feels like clarity to them. Third, the invitation pause. When you want someone to contribute to the conversation, create space for them to enter. Instead of asking a question and immediately elaborating, ask the question and stop. What do you think about that? Then wait. Don't rescue them from the silence. Let them fill it. I used this technique in a negotiation last year. The other party made an offer that was way below what I was expecting. My instinct was to immediately counter with reasons why it was too low. Instead, I paused for 10 full seconds. Then I said, and paused again. They started talking. Well, of course, there's some flexibility there. We could probably, and they negotiated against themselves for 5 minutes. I never said their offer was low. The silence said it for me. But here's the most important pause of all. The confidence pause. When someone challenges you or asks a difficult question, your brain wants to respond immediately to prove you know the answer. Don't. Pause. Not because you don't know what to say, but because you're choosing your words carefully. That's a good question. Let me think about that for a moment. Then pause, even if you already know your answer. People respect thoughtful responses more than quick ones. Master the pause, and you'll never feel rushed in conversation again. Storytelling in seconds. Every great conversation contains at least one story. Not a long, rambling story that puts people to sleep. A micro story that makes your point stick. Most people think storytelling takes time. It doesn't. It takes structure. The best stories are often the shortest ones. Here's the micro-narrative technique. Every story needs 3 elements: setup, surprise, and significance. Setup, the context in 1 sentence. Surprise, the unexpected thing that happened. Significance, why it matters to your listener. Let me show you. Bad story. So I was at the store yesterday, and I needed to buy milk, but they were out of milk, so I had to go to another store, and that store was closed. So I went to a third store, and they had milk, but it was expensive, so I bought it anyway. And when I got home, I realized I had forgotten to buy bread. Good story. I learned something about persistence yesterday. Went to 3 different stores to buy milk. The third store was 3 times more expensive, but I bought it anyway. Made me realize how much I value consistency over cost. See the difference? The first story is a series of events. The second story is a series of events with meaning. Setup. I learned something about persistence yesterday. Surprise. Paid 3 times more for milk because I refused to give up. Significance. Made me realize how much I value consistency over cost. Here's how to find micro stories in your everyday life. Everything that happens to you is potential story material. The question is, what's the lesson? You get stuck in traffic. Lesson: patience, planning, acceptance. You have a difficult conversation with a coworker. Lesson: communication, empathy, boundaries. You try a new restaurant. Lesson: risk-taking, adventure, quality. Start collecting moments, not just experiencing them. When something happens, ask yourself, what's the story here? What did I learn? How does this connect to something bigger? Here's a micro story I used in a presentation last month. I discovered something about assumptions last week. My neighbor's dog barks every morning at 6 a.m. I was furious. Then I found out my neighbor works night shifts and the dog is actually protecting her while she sleeps. Same behavior, completely different meaning. Setup. I discovered something about assumptions last week. Surprise. The annoying dog was actually being protective. Significance. Same behavior, completely different meaning. 30 seconds. Complete story. Makes the point about assumptions better than 10 minutes of explanation. But here's the advanced technique. Use callback stories. Once you've told a micro story, reference it later in the conversation. Remember what I said about assumptions? I think that's what's happening here too. Suddenly, you're not just making a point. You're building a narrative thread that connects the entire conversation. People remember stories better than facts. They remember connections better than individual points. When you weave micro stories throughout your conversations, people don't just hear what you're saying. They experience it. Practice this. For the next week, collect one micro story every day. Something that happened to you, something you observed, something you learned. Setup, surprise, significance. By the end of the week, you'll have 7 stories that can make any conversation more engaging. And here's what you'll discover. You're not just becoming a better storyteller. You're becoming a better observer of life. Because when you're looking for stories, you're looking for meaning. And when you're looking for meaning, you find it everywhere. Reinforcement phrase. Remember, smart conversation isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions and responding with intention. You now have the architecture. The clear framework gives you structure. Reading the room gives you awareness. Strategic pauses give you power. Micro stories give you connection. But architecture is only as strong as its foundation. And the foundation of all great communication is what we're going to explore next. The art of listening so well that people feel compelled to tell you their truth. Chapter 3. Pressure Cooker Communication. The boardroom is silent. All eyes are on you. Your heart is pounding. Your mouth feels dry. The question hanging in the air feels impossible to answer. This is the moment that separates good communicators from great ones. Most people crumble under pressure. Their minds go blank. Their words come out jumbled. They stumble through responses that make them cringe later. But pressure doesn't have to be your enemy. In fact, when you understand what's really happening in your brain and body during high-stakes moments, pressure becomes your greatest ally. Because here's what nobody tells you. The same physiological response that makes you freeze can also make you brilliant. The difference isn't the pressure. It's how you channel it. Today, you're going to learn how to turn stress into strength, panic into power, and every high-pressure situation into your moment to shine. This is where champions are made. The physiology of pressure. Let me tell you about the worst presentation of my life. I was 28 years old, standing in front of the board of directors of a Fortune 500 company. 23 people in suits, all staring at me. The CEO had asked me to explain why our proposal was better than our competitors. Simple question, right? Wrong. The moment I opened my mouth, my brain went completely blank. Not partially blank, completely blank. I stood there for what felt like an hour, just staring at these people. My heart was beating so loud, I was sure they could hear it. Finally, I mumbled something about needing a moment and practically ran to the bathroom. That's when I realized I had to understand what was happening to me. Because it wasn't just nervousness. It was a complete system shutdown. Here's what I learned. When your brain perceives a threat, and yes, a room full of people judging you is a threat, it triggers your sympathetic nervous system. Within milliseconds, your body floods with stress hormones. Adrenaline, cortisol, norepinephrine. Your heart rate spikes. Your breathing gets shallow. Blood flow reduces to your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for complex thinking. That's why you can't think clearly under pressure. Your brain is literally shutting down non-essential functions to prepare for fight or flight. But here's the fascinating part. Those same chemicals that make you freeze can also make you superhuman. Ever hear stories of people lifting cars off trapped victims? That's stress hormones channeled correctly. Ever watch athletes perform impossible feats in championship moments? Same chemicals, different channel. The question is, how do you flip the switch? First, you need to hack your breathing. Most people try to calm down by taking deep breaths. That's backwards. When you're in fight or flight mode, your body expects short, quick breaths. If you suddenly start breathing deeply, it thinks something's wrong and panics more. Instead, use tactical breathing. Breathe in for 4 counts through your nose. Hold for 4 counts. Breathe out for 6 counts through your mouth. The longer exhale tricks your nervous system into thinking the danger has passed. Try it right now. For in, hold 4, 6 out. Do that 3 times, and your heart rate will drop by 20 beats per minute. Your blood flow will return to your thinking brain. You'll go from reactive to responsive in under 30 seconds. But here's the advanced technique. Instead of trying to eliminate the pressure, reframe it. Your body is preparing you for peak performance. Those stress hormones are making you more alert, more focused, more powerful. Tell yourself, I'm not nervous. I'm excited. My body is getting ready to do something amazing. I started using this technique after that disaster in the boardroom. 6 months later, I was back in front of the same board. Same pressure, same stakes. But this time when I felt my heart racing, I thought, perfect. My body is preparing me to nail this. I nailed it. Got the contract, got promoted, and more importantly, got my confidence back. The STAR method under fire. The biggest mistake people make under pressure is trying to wing it. They think, I'll just speak from the heart, or I'll figure it out as I go. That works fine in casual conversation. Under pressure, it's a disaster. When stress hormones flood your system, your creative thinking shuts down. You need structure more than ever. This is where the STAR method becomes your lifeline. Situation, task, action, result. It's a framework that works for any high-pressure response. Job interviews, difficult questions, crisis communication, performance reviews. Anything. Let me show you how it works. They ask you, tell me about a time you failed. Panic response. Well, I don't really fail that much, but I guess there's this one time. STAR response. Situation. Last year, I was leading a project with a tight deadline and a client who kept changing requirements. Task. My job was to deliver on time while maintaining quality, despite the moving targets. Action. I made the mistake of trying to accommodate every change without pushback. I thought I was being helpful, but I was actually setting us up for failure. Result. We missed the deadline by 2 weeks. But I learned to set boundaries with clients and build buffer time into projects. Since then, I've delivered every project on time. See the difference? The panic response is defensive and scattered. The STAR response is structured and confident. Even though you're admitting failure, you sound competent. But here's where it gets powerful. STAR works for any question, even ones that don't seem to fit. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Situation. Right now, I'm at a point in my career where I'm ready for bigger challenges. Task. I want to develop skills that will make me valuable to any organization. Action. That's why I'm drawn to this role. It combines my existing strengths with opportunities to grow in areas I'm passionate about. Result. In 5 years, I see myself as someone who's made a significant impact here while building expertise that benefits everyone. Notice how that works. You've answered their question while also selling yourself for the job. The key is practicing STAR responses for common pressure situations. Why should we hire you? What's your biggest weakness? Tell me about a conflict you've resolved. Have a STAR story ready for each one. Not a memorized script, a flexible framework. I learned this from a crisis management expert who worked with Fortune 500 CEOs. She told me, when the media is attacking you and shareholders are panicking, you don't have time to think of the perfect response. You need a structure that works under any pressure. She was right. I used STAR during a product crisis 2 years ago. Our software had a bug that affected thousands of users. The press was calling it a catastrophic failure. In the emergency press conference, instead of panicking, I used STAR. Situation: we discovered a bug that affected user data processing. Task: our immediate priority was protecting user data and fixing the issue. Action: we shut down the affected systems within minutes, isolated the problem, and deployed a fix within 6 hours. Result: no user data was lost, and we've implemented additional safeguards to prevent similar issues. Clean, clear, confident. Even in the middle of a crisis, STAR kept me grounded. Here's how to make STAR automatic. Think of 5 challenging situations from your past. Work situations, personal situations, academic situations. Write out the STAR framework for each one. Practice telling these stories until the structure feels natural. Then, when pressure hits, you'll have a proven framework to fall back on. Handling difficult questions. Some questions are designed to make you stumble. Why did you leave your last job when you were fired? What's your biggest weakness when you're trying to get hired? How do you explain this failure when you're already under scrutiny? These aren't just questions. They're traps. Most people either avoid the question entirely or walk straight into the trap. Both approaches fail. You need a third option, the bridge technique. The bridge technique acknowledges the question while redirecting to your message. It's not avoiding. It's not deflecting. It's strategically guiding the conversation where you want it to go. Here's how it works. Phase 1, acknowledge. That's an important question. Phase 2, bridge. What's really relevant here is Phase 3, redirect. And here's what that means for you. Let me show you. Trap question. Your competitor is cheaper. Why should we pay more? Acknowledge. Price is definitely a factor in any decision. Bridge. What's really relevant here is the total cost of ownership. Redirect. When you factor in quality, support, and long-term value, we actually save you money. Let me show you exactly how. You've acknowledged their concern, but you've moved the conversation to your strength. That's the bridge technique. Here's another example. Trap question. You don't have experience in our industry. How do we know you can handle this? Acknowledge. You're right, I don't have direct experience in your specific industry. Bridge. What I do have is a proven track record of learning industries quickly and applying successful strategies across different sectors. Redirect. In fact, that outside perspective often reveals opportunities that industry insiders miss. Here's an example. See how that works? You're not denying the weakness. You're reframing it as a strength. But here's the advanced version. Sometimes the best way to handle a difficult question is to question the question. That's interesting. Help me understand why that's important to you. Before I answer that, can you tell me what you're really trying to get at? What would you like to know specifically? This does 2 things. First, it gives you time to think while they're talking. Second, it often reveals that the real question is different from what they asked. I used this technique in a job interview where the hiring manager asked, "Do you think you're overqualified for this position?" Instead of answering directly, I said, "That's an interesting question. What concerns you about my background?" He responded, "I'm worried you'll get bored and leave in 6 months." Now I knew the real question. Are you committed to staying? Much easier to answer. I understand that concern. Let me tell you why this role is exactly what I'm looking for right now. Got the job. The key is staying curious, not defensive. When someone asks a difficult question, they're usually worried about something specific. Find out what they're really worried about, and you can address the real issue instead of fighting shadows. Recovery strategies. Everyone makes mistakes under pressure. You stumble over words. You forget important points. You say something that comes out wrong. The difference between good communicators and great ones isn't that great ones never mess up. It's that great ones recover faster and stronger. Most people try to pretend mistakes didn't happen. As I was saying, anyway, moving on, this makes it worse, because now everyone is thinking about your mistake instead of your message. Instead, acknowledge it quickly and move forward confidently. Let me rephrase that. Actually, here's a better way to say it. I misspoke. What I meant was 5 seconds of acknowledgement, then full steam ahead. But here's the ninja technique. Turn your mistake into a strength. I was giving a presentation last year about data security. In the middle of talking about how secure our system was, I accidentally said insecure instead of secure. The whole room started laughing. Olmi would have been mortified. Instead, I said, actually, that's exactly the right word. Most systems are insecure, which is why we built ours differently. I turned a slip of the tongue into a transition to my main point. Here's another recovery technique. When you lose your train of thought, don't panic. Say, you know what? I was so focused on that last point that I want to make sure you understood it before I move on. What questions do you have? Now your mistake looks like thoughtful pacing. Or this one, you realize you said something factually incorrect. Don't try to backtrack or make excuses. Say, I need to correct something I just said. I gave you the wrong number, and accuracy is important here. Then give the correct information. People respect honesty more than perfection. But the most powerful recovery strategy is vulnerability. When you make a big mistake, own it completely. I completely botched that explanation. Let me start over and do it right. I'm clearly not explaining this well. Help me understand what's not making sense. I just realized I've been talking about the wrong thing entirely. Can we reset? Vulnerability is disarming. It makes people root for you instead of against you. I learned this during a client presentation where I prepared for the wrong company. 10 minutes in, I realized I was talking about solutions for a manufacturing company to a group of software executives. I could have tried to pivot quietly. Instead, I stopped and said, I owe you an apology. I prepared for the wrong presentation, and you deserve better. Give me 30 seconds to reset, and I'll show you exactly what I should have shown you from the beginning. The room was silent. Then the CEO started clapping. That's the kind of honesty we need in a partner, he said. We signed a contract that afternoon. Remember, mistakes don't define you. How you handle them does. When you recover with grace, confidence, and authenticity, people don't remember the mistake. They remember how you handled it. And that's often more impressive than getting it right the first time. Power phrase. Pressure doesn't build character. It reveals it. And now you have the tools to reveal your brilliance. You understand the physiology of pressure and how to channel it. You have the STAR framework to structure any response. You know how to bridge difficult questions without avoiding them. And you can recover from any mistake stronger than before. The boardroom isn't silent anymore. It's waiting for you to show them what you're really made of. But great communication isn't just about handling pressure. It's about creating connection, building trust, making people feel heard and understood. That's where we're going next. The deepest skill of human communication, the one that turns strangers into allies and conflicts into collaborations. The art of listening so powerfully that people feel compelled to share their truth with you. Chapter 4. The Psychology of Persuasion. Persuasion isn't manipulation. It's the art of helping others see the world through your eyes while respecting their journey. It's influence with integrity. Most people think persuasion is about being slick, pushy, or clever. They imagine used car salesmen with fake smiles and rehearsed lines. That's not persuasion. That's manipulation. And people can smell it from miles away. Real persuasion is different. It's about understanding what matters to someone else and finding the bridge between their world and yours. It's about speaking to their hopes, their fears, their dreams in a way that feels genuine. Because here's what I've learned after 20 years of studying human behavior. People don't resist ideas. They resist being pushed. They don't reject solutions. They reject feeling stupid or ignored. They don't say no to change. They say no to losing control. Once you understand this, everything changes. You stop trying to convince people and start helping them convince themselves. You stop pushing and start pulling. You stop talking and start listening. And that's when the magic happens. The 6 pillars of influence. Let me tell you about the worst sales pitch I ever witnessed. I was in a meeting with a vendor who was trying to sell a software. Expensive software. The guy spent 45 minutes telling us how amazing his product was. Features, benefits, awards, testimonials. By the end, we were all checking our phones. Then he said something that made everyone look up. I know you're probably thinking this sounds too good to be true. I thought the same thing when I first heard about it. But here's what changed my mind. Suddenly, we were listening. Why? Because he stopped trying to convince us and started being human. He acknowledged our skepticism instead of ignoring it. He shared his own doubts instead of hiding them. That moment taught me something crucial about persuasion. It's not about having the perfect argument. It's about understanding the psychology behind why people say yes. There are 6 fundamental principles that drive human behavior. Master these, and you'll never struggle to get your point across again. First, reciprocity. People feel obligated to return favors. But here's the thing most people get wrong. You don't have to give something big to trigger reciprocity. Sometimes the smallest gestures have the biggest impact. I learned this from a waiter in Chicago. He brought me a mint with my check. Nothing unusual. But then he started to walk away, stopped, came back, and said, "You know what? You seem like a really nice person. Let me give you an extra mint." His tip went up 30%. Why? Because the second mint felt personal, like he was doing something special just for me. The reciprocity wasn't about the mint. It was about the gesture. You can use this anywhere. Send a thank you note after a meeting. Not an email, a handwritten note. Share an article that reminds you of something they mentioned. Remember their coffee order. Give first without expecting anything back. The reciprocity happens naturally. Second, commitment and consistency. People want to be consistent with what they've already said or done. This is why the best salespeople don't sell. They ask questions that lead you to sell yourself. What's most important to you in a solution like this? If you could solve this problem, how would that change things for you? What would have to be true for this to be a no-brainer? When people answer these questions, they're committing to criteria. Now, when you show them how your solution meets those criteria, you're not pushing. You're helping them stay consistent with their own words. I used this technique when I was trying to get buy-in for a new project at work. Instead of pitching the project, I asked my boss, what would success look like for our team this year? She spent 10 minutes describing her vision. Then I said, that's exactly what this project is designed to achieve. Let me show you how. Project approved. Third, social proof. We look to others to guide our behavior, especially when we're uncertain. But social proof isn't just about saying everyone's doing it. The most powerful social proof is specific and relevant. Instead of saying, this is our most popular package, say 70% of companies your size choose this option because it gives them the flexibility to scale. Instead of saying, we have lots of happy customers, say 3 CEOs in your industry told me this was the best investment they made last year. The more specific, the more powerful. Fourth, authority. People defer to experts and credible sources. But authority isn't about titles or credentials. It's about demonstrating knowledge and competence. You build authority by sharing insights, not accomplishments. By solving problems, not listing awards. By showing expertise, not claiming it. I watched a consultant do this brilliantly in a client meeting. Instead of leading with his resume, he started with, I've seen this exact problem in 4 different companies. Here are the 3 approaches that worked and the 2 that failed spectacularly. Instant authority. Fifth, liking. We say yes to people we like. But liking isn't about being likable. It's about finding genuine connection. People like people who are similar to them, who share their values, backgrounds, interests, or goals, who compliment them sincerely, who are on their side. The key word is genuine. Fake similarity feels slimy. Real connection feels natural. And finally, scarcity. We value things more when they're rare or limited. But scarcity isn't about false urgency or made-up deadlines. It's about helping people understand what they might lose. This opportunity won't be available forever is weak. If we don't act now, your competitors will have a 6-month head start is powerful. Because it's not about the deadline. It's about the cost of waiting. Here's the thing about these 6 principles. They work because they're based on fundamental human psychology. But they only work when you use them ethically. When you genuinely care about helping people make good decisions. When you're focused on their benefit, not just your own. Use them to manipulate, and people will eventually catch on. Use them to serve, and people will trust you forever. Emotional intelligence in action. The best persuaders aren't the smartest people in the room. They're the ones who read the room, who notice when someone checks out of the conversation, who sense tension before it explodes, who feel the shift when minds start to change. This is emotional intelligence in action. And it's the difference between talking at people and connecting with them. Let me show you what I mean. I was in a negotiation last year. Big contract, high stakes. My counterpart was a tough negotiator, reputation for being impossible to deal with. But 5 minutes into the meeting, I noticed something. Every time someone interrupted him, his jaw tightened slightly. When people rushed him, his shoulders tensed. When they dismissed his concerns, he started speaking slower and more deliberately. This guy wasn't impossible. He was frustrated. Frustrated by people who didn't give him space to think and speak. So, I changed my approach. Instead of rushing through my agenda, I slowed down. Instead of interrupting with objections, I let him finish his thoughts. Instead of dismissing his concerns, I acknowledged them. That's a really important point. Tell me more about that. I can see why that would be concerning. Help me understand the impact. Before I respond to that, is there anything else I should know? Within an hour, his whole demeanor changed. His shoulders relaxed. His voice warmed up. He started leaning forward instead of back. We closed the deal that day. Here's what happened. I read his emotional state and adjusted mine to match it. Then, gradually, I led him to a more positive state. This is called matching and leading, and it's one of the most powerful persuasion techniques you can learn. First, you match. If they're speaking slowly, you speak slowly. If they're being analytical, you present facts and data. If they're excited, you match their energy. If they're concerned, you acknowledge those concerns. You're not mimicking them. You're meeting them where they are, showing them that you understand their state and respect it. Then, once you've established that connection, you can lead. Gradually shift to the emotional state you want them in. If they're anxious, slowly move toward calm. If they're skeptical, gradually introduce optimism. If they're rushed, gently slow things down. But here's the crucial part. You can't fake emotional intelligence. You have to genuinely care about understanding the other person. You have to be curious about their experience, not just focused on your outcome. I learned this the hard way during a team meeting where everyone was stressed about a deadline. Instead of acknowledging the stress, I jumped straight into problem-solving mode. Here's what we need to do. First, we'll prioritize tasks. Second, we'll reallocate resources. The room went dead. Not because my ideas were bad, but because I skipped right over how people were feeling. I was trying to lead without first matching. So I stopped and said, you know what? I can see everyone's feeling the pressure here. This deadline is stressing all of us out, isn't it? Suddenly, people started nodding, talking, sharing their concerns. Only then could we move toward solutions. The lesson? You can't lead people to a new emotional state until you've acknowledged the one they're in. Match first, lead second. Always. The language of connection. Words aren't just communication tools. They're connection tools. The right words can make someone feel understood, valued, important. The wrong words can create distance, even when you're trying to help. This is because of something called mirror neurons. When you hear someone speak, your brain unconsciously mimics their patterns. Their pace, their tone, their word choices. It's automatic. You can't stop it, but you can use it. When you consciously match someone's language patterns, you create an unconscious sense of familiarity. They feel like you understand them, even if they can't explain why. Here's how it works. If someone says, "I see what you mean," they're thinking visually. Match it. "Let me paint a picture of how this would look." If they say, "That sounds right to me," they're thinking auditorily. Match it. "Listen to this idea and tell me how it sounds." If they say, "I feel like this could work," they're thinking kinesthetically. Match it. "Let's get a feel for how this would work in practice." You're not copying them. You're speaking their mental language, meeting them in their preferred way of processing information. I saw this work beautifully in a client presentation. The client kept using sports metaphors. "We need to hit a home run. This is a game changer. We can't strike out." Instead of ignoring this, my colleague leaned into it. "Here's how we'll help you score big. This strategy puts you in the championship game. We'll make sure you're always swinging for the fences." The client was nodding before we even finished the pitch. Why? Because we were speaking his language, literally. But language matching goes deeper than just words. It's about matching values, priorities, and concerns. If someone values efficiency, you talk about streamlined processes and time savings. If they value relationships, you talk about team impact and collaboration. If they value innovation, you talk about cutting-edge solutions and competitive advantage. You're not changing your message. You're translating it into their value system. I learned this during a job interview where I completely misread the interviewer. I spent 20 minutes talking about innovation and disruption. She kept asking about processes and stability. Finally, I realized my mistake. "I can see the reliability is really important to you. Let me tell you about how I've built stable, dependable systems that teams can count on." Her whole posture changed. We were finally speaking the same language. Here's the advanced technique. Use inclusive language that makes people feel part of the solution. Instead of "I think you should," say "What if we tried?" Instead of "the problem with your approach," say "one challenge we might face." Instead of "you need to understand," say "here's something interesting." Small changes, massive impact. Because now you're not talking to them. You're talking with them. You're not solving their problem. You're solving our problem. And that changes everything. Ethical boundaries. There's a fine line between influence and manipulation. And it's not where most people think it is. Most people think manipulation is about technique, using psychology to get what you want. But that's not it at all. The difference isn't in the how, it's in the why. Manipulation is about getting what you want regardless of what's best for the other person. Influence is about finding what's best for both of you. Same techniques, completely different intent. Let me give you an example. Two salespeople using the scarcity principle. Salesperson A, this deal expires at midnight. You need to decide now. Salesperson B, I want to be transparent with you. This pricing is only available through the end of the month because our costs are going up. I don't want you to miss out if this is something that makes sense for you. Same principle. One feels manipulative, the other feels helpful. Why? Because the first one is about pressure. The second one is about information. Here's my ethical framework for persuasion. First, would I want someone to use this technique on me? If the answer is no, don't use it. Second, am I helping them make a better decision or just the decision I want? If it's just about what you want, you're manipulating. Third, would I still use this approach if they could see exactly what I'm doing? If you have to hide your technique, you're probably crossing the line. I had to face this directly a few years ago. I was trying to convince my team to work late on a project. I could have used authority. This needs to be done, so we're staying late. I could have used social proof. Everyone else is staying, so you should too. I could have used scarcity. If we don't finish tonight, we'll lose the client. All of these might have worked, but I asked myself, what's really going on here? And what's best for everyone? The truth was, I had procrastinated on planning, and now I was trying to make my emergency their emergency. That's not influence. That's manipulation. So instead, I said, I messed up the timeline on this project, and now we're in a tough spot. I know it's not fair to ask you to stay late because of my mistake, but here's the situation we're facing. If anyone can't stay, I completely understand. We'll figure out another way. Everyone stayed, not because I persuaded them, but because I was honest with them. And they respected that. Here's what I've learned about ethical persuasion. The most powerful technique isn't a technique at all. It's genuinely caring about the other person's best interests. When people sense that you're truly looking out for them, they don't resist your influence. They welcome it. Because you're not trying to get something from them. You're trying to give something to them. Insight, solutions, opportunities. This doesn't mean you ignore your own interests. It means you look for the overlap. The place where what's good for you is also good for them. That's where real persuasion lives. I call this principled persuasion. You're not trying to win. You're trying to find the win-win. You're not trying to convince. You're trying to connect. You're not trying to pressure. You're trying to provide value. And here's the beautiful thing about principled persuasion. It works better than manipulation. Because when people trust you, they don't just say yes once. They keep saying yes. They become advocates, not just customers. Partners, not just prospects. But it requires something most people aren't willing to give. Patience. The patience to understand before seeking to be understood. The patience to build relationships instead of just closing deals. The patience to do what's right instead of what's fast. That patience is what separates true influencers from everyone else. It's what turns persuasion from a tactic into a way of being. And once you master it, you'll never need to manipulate anyone again. Because people will want to follow you. Power phrase. True persuasion happens when others feel heard, understood, and valued. It's not about winning. It's about creating win-win outcomes. You now understand the 6 pillars that drive human behavior. You can read emotional states and guide conversations with genuine care. You know how to speak the language of connection. And you have the ethical framework to use these skills with integrity. But persuasion is just one part of the communication puzzle. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to speak at all. It's to listen. Not just to respond, but to truly understand. To make people feel so heard that they open up in ways they never expected. That's the skill we're exploring next. The art of listening so deeply that people can't help but trust you with their truth. Chapter 5. Mastering the Unexpected. Life doesn't come with a script. The most successful communicators aren't those who memorize lines. They're those who can improvise with grace and confidence. You walk into a meeting prepared for one conversation and find yourself in another. Someone asks the question you hoped they wouldn't ask. The presentation technology fails 30 seconds before you start. Your carefully crafted argument gets shot down in the first 5 minutes. Welcome to real communication. Messy, unpredictable, full of surprises, and absolutely unavoidable. Most people panic when things don't go according to plan. They freeze up, stumble over words, desperately try to get back to their script. But the best communicators do something different. They lean into the unexpected. They use surprise as fuel, not friction. Because here's what they understand. The unexpected moment is often the most important moment. It's where real connection happens. Where trust gets built or broken. Where ordinary conversations become extraordinary ones. Today, you're going to learn how to master those moments. How to turn curveballs into opportunities. How to think on your feet without losing your footing. How to be brilliant when you have no idea what's coming next. The improvisation mindset. Improvisational actors have a secret weapon. 2 simple words that change everything. Yes and not yes, but not no, however, not actually what if. Yes and here's how it works. Whatever someone throws at you, you accept it first. Then you build on it. Add to it. Expand it. Make it bigger. Someone says your idea won't work. Yes, in response. You're right to be concerned about implementation. And that's exactly why we need to think through the rollout carefully. Someone interrupts your presentation with a tough question. Yes, in response. That's a crucial point. And it actually connects to something I was going to cover in just a minute. Someone challenges your timeline. Yes, in response. You're absolutely right about the time pressure. And that makes it even more important that we get the priorities straight. Notice what's happening here. You're not defending. You're not deflecting. You're not dismissing. You're acknowledging their input and using it as a springboard. This does two powerful things. First, it makes the other person feel heard. Their objection or question becomes part of the conversation instead of an attack on it. Second, it keeps you moving forward instead of getting stuck. You don't waste energy fighting the current. You redirect it. But yes, and is more than just a technique. It's a mindset, a way of approaching every interaction with curiosity instead of defensiveness. Instead of thinking, how do I shut this down? You think, how do I work with this? Instead of this is ruining my plan, you think this is revealing something important. Instead of they're wrong, you think they're giving me information. This mindset shift is huge because when you stop fighting the unexpected, you start learning from it. Every interruption becomes insight. Every objection becomes intelligence. Every curveball becomes an opportunity to show how adaptable you are. The yes and mindset also changes how others perceive you. Instead of seeing you as rigid or defensive, they see you as collaborative. Instead of someone who breaks under pressure, they see someone who flows with it. Instead of someone who sticks to the script, they see someone who can write a new one on the spot. Here's the advanced version. Don't just say yes and live yes and. When someone brings up an idea you haven't considered, genuinely explore it. When someone points out a flaw in your thinking, genuinely examine it. When someone takes the conversation in a direction you didn't expect, genuinely follow it. This isn't about agreeing with everything. It's about being genuinely open to everything. Open to new information, new perspectives, new possibilities. Because the unexpected often contains exactly what you need. The question you didn't want to answer reveals the concern you need to address. The objection you didn't anticipate points to the real issue. The direction you didn't plan leads to the breakthrough you've been looking for. Yes, and turns every conversation into a collaboration. And collaboration is where the magic happens. Handling curveballs. The question hits you out of nowhere. What's your plan if the market crashes next quarter? How do you justify these numbers when the industry average is half that? Why should we trust you when your last project failed? Your mind goes blank. Your heart starts racing. Every eye in the room is on you. This is the moment that separates good communicators from great ones. Not because great communicators always have the perfect answer, but because they have a system for finding one. I call it the pivot technique. 4 steps that work every single time. Step 1, pause. Not a long pause, just long enough to breathe. 2 seconds, 3 at most. This pause does 3 things. It gives you time to think. It shows you're taking the question seriously. And it prevents you from blurting out something you'll regret. Step 2, acknowledge. That's an important question. I'm glad you brought that up. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need here. You're not stalling. You're validating. You're showing respect for the question and the person asking it. Step 3, bridge. This is where you connect their question to something you can answer. The question of risk management is crucial, and here's how we're approaching it. You're right to focus on industry standards, which is why our benchmarking process is so thorough. That past experience taught me something valuable that directly applies here. You're not avoiding the question. You're expanding it, reframing it, putting it in a context where you can provide value. Step 4, deliver. Now you give your answer, but not just any answer. The answer that addresses their underlying concern. Because here's what most people miss. The question behind the question is usually more important than the question itself. What's your plan if the market crashes? Isn't really about market crashes. It's about risk management and contingency planning. Why should we trust you when your last project failed? Isn't really about the past failure. It's about what you've learned and how you've grown. How do you justify these numbers? Isn't really about the numbers. It's about credibility and methodology. When you answer the question behind the question, you don't just satisfy their curiosity. You address their concern. You solve their problem. You give them what they really need. But what if you genuinely don't know the answer? What if the question is completely outside your expertise? What if they found the one gap in your knowledge? This is where most people panic. But it's actually an opportunity. An opportunity to show something more valuable than knowledge. Integrity. I don't know the specific numbers off the top of my head, but I can get you that information by tomorrow morning. That's outside my area of expertise, but I know someone who can give you a better answer than I could. That's a great question, and I want to give you a thoughtful response. Can I follow up with you after I've had time to research it properly? Notice what's happening here. You're not pretending to know something you don't. You're not deflecting or dismissing. You're being honest about your limitations while showing commitment to helping. This builds more trust than having all the answers. Because everyone knows that no one is all the answers. But not everyone is honest about it. Your willingness to say, I don't know, followed by, but I'll find out, shows more character than a dozen perfect responses. It shows you care more about giving accurate information than looking smart. It shows you're human. And people connect with humans, not know-it-alls. Creative problem solving. The best solutions don't come from the obvious places. They come from the spaces between ideas. The connections that aren't supposed to exist. The approaches that nobody else has tried. This is especially true in communication. When you're stuck in a difficult conversation, the way out usually isn't through the problem. It's around it, under it, over it, somewhere unexpected. Real-time creative problem solving starts with changing your perspective. Instead of asking, how do I solve this? Ask, what if this isn't actually the problem? Instead of, how do I convince them? Ask, what do they need to convince themselves? Instead of, how do I win this argument? Ask, how do we both win? Different questions lead to different answers. Better questions lead to better answers. Here's a framework that works. I call it the 3-lens approach. Lens 1, zoom out. What's the bigger picture here? What are we really trying to accomplish? What does success actually look like for everyone involved? Sometimes you're so focused on the immediate problem that you miss the real opportunity. The client says your price is too high. Zoom out. What are they really trying to achieve? Save money or get value? If it's value, the conversation shifts from price to ROI. Lens 2, zoom in. What's the smallest part of this problem we could solve right now? What's the simplest step we could take? What's the easiest one we could get? Big problems feel overwhelming. Small problems feel manageable. Sometimes the key is just getting started. The team is resistant to change. Zoom in. What's one small thing that would make their day easier? Start there. Build momentum. Use success to create more success. Lens 3. Zoom sideways. How would someone else approach this? What would a child do? An artist? An engineer? A comedian? What would we do if we had unlimited resources? No resources? Different constraints entirely. This is where breakthrough thinking happens. When you borrow approaches from completely different domains. The meeting is getting heated. Zoom sideways. How would a mediator handle this? A therapist? A sports coach? Suddenly you have new tools, new strategies, new possibilities. The key to all 3 lenses is speed. You don't have time for lengthy analysis. You need to cycle through perspectives quickly. Trust your intuition. Go with your gut. Try something. Because in real-time problem solving, action beats analysis. A mediocre solution implemented immediately beats a perfect solution that comes too late. And here's the beautiful thing about creative problem solving and communication. The process itself is impressive. When people see you thinking creatively under pressure, they respect that. When they see you considering multiple perspectives, they trust that. When they see you trying new approaches, they appreciate that. Even if your first attempt doesn't work, you've demonstrated something valuable. You've shown that you don't give up, that you don't stick to old patterns when they're not working, that you're willing to experiment, to adapt, to innovate. And that makes people want to work with you. Because everyone gets stuck sometimes. But not everyone knows how to get unstuck. The ability to think creatively under pressure isn't just a communication skill. It's a leadership skill. It's the skill that makes people look to you when things get difficult, when the usual approaches aren't working, when someone needs to find a new way forward. Master this, and you become the person others turn to, not because you have all the answers, but because you know how to find them. Embracing vulnerability. The most powerful words in communication might surprise you. I don't know. I was wrong. I need help. I'm not sure. These phrases terrify most people. They sound like weakness, like failure, like the end of credibility. But they're actually the opposite. They're the beginning of trust. Because vulnerability isn't weakness. It's courage. The courage to be human in a world that expects perfection. The courage to admit limitations in a culture that rewards pretense. The courage to ask for help in a society that celebrates self-reliance. And when you have that courage, something magical happens. People stop seeing you as a threat and start seeing you as a teammate. They stop protecting themselves and start opening up. They stop competing with you and start collaborating with you. I don't know is particularly powerful. Most people are terrified to say it. They'll bluff, deflect, change the subject, anything to avoid admitting ignorance. But I don't know followed by genuine curiosity is magnetic. I don't know. Help me understand. I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. Let's figure it out together. Suddenly, you're not the person who's supposed to have all the answers. You're the person who's smart enough to ask the right questions. You're not the expert who can't be questioned. You're the learner who makes space for others to be experts. This shift changes everything. Instead of feeling like they need to challenge you, people feel like they can teach you. Instead of feeling judged by your knowledge, they feel valued for theirs. Instead of competing for airtime, they're sharing insights. I was wrong is even more powerful because it does something most people never do. It gives others permission to be wrong too. When you admit a mistake quickly and cleanly, you model something rare. Intellectual humility. The willingness to change your mind when you get new information. The ability to value truth over being right. You know what? I was wrong about that. Here's what I learned. I made a mistake. Here's how I'm going to fix it. I changed my mind. Here's why. These statements don't diminish your credibility. They enhance it because they show you're more committed to getting it right than to being right. I need help might be the most powerful of all because it transforms you from someone who takes to someone who gives. You give others the opportunity to contribute, to feel valuable, to be part of the solution. I'm struggling with this. Do you have any ideas? I could use a different perspective on this. What am I missing? I'm stuck. Can you help me think through this? These requests don't make you look weak. They make you look wise. Wise enough to know that the best solutions come from collaboration. Wise enough to value others' expertise. Wise enough to admit when you're in over your head. But here's the key to vulnerability in communication. It has to be genuine. You can't fake not knowing something you know. You can't pretend to need help when you don't. You can't manufacture authenticity. Real vulnerability comes from real recognition of your real limitations. It comes from genuine curiosity about others' perspectives. It comes from honest acknowledgement of your mistakes. And when it's real, people feel it. They respond to it. They mirror it. Your vulnerability gives them permission to be vulnerable. Your questions give them permission to ask questions. Your admission of uncertainty gives them permission to express their own doubts. And suddenly, instead of a conversation where everyone's pretending to have it all figured out, you have a conversation where people are actually helping each other figure it out. Instead of a performance, you have a collaboration. Instead of a competition, you have a community. This is where the deepest connections happen. Not in the moments when you're perfect, but in the moments when you're human. Not when you have all the answers, but when you're brave enough to ask the questions. Not when you're invulnerable, but when you're courageously vulnerable. Embrace that vulnerability. Don't hide from it. Don't apologize for it. Use it. Because in a world full of people trying to look perfect, the person who's willing to be real stands out. In a world full of people pretending to know everything, the person who's honest about what they don't know gets trusted. In a world full of people afraid to be wrong, the person who admits mistakes gets respected. Your vulnerability isn't your weakness. It's your superpower. Flexibility is the key to stability. In conversation, as in life, those who bend don't break. You now have the tools to handle whatever comes your way. The yes and mindset that turns obstacles into opportunities. The pivot technique that helps you navigate unexpected questions. The three-lens approach for creative problem solving under pressure. And the courage to be vulnerable when a situation calls for it. These skills don't just make you a better communicator. They make you more adaptable, more resilient, more human. Because the unexpected isn't something to avoid. It's something to embrace. It's where growth happens, where connections deepen, where ordinary conversations become extraordinary ones. But even the most skilled improvisers need something to ground them. A foundation of trust that makes people want to engage. An authentic presence that makes others feel safe to open up. A way of being that invites connection rather than demanding it. That's what we're exploring next. The subtle art of building trust so naturally that people don't even realize it's happening. The invisible skills that make the visible ones possible. Chapter 6. Digital Age Communication. We live in a world where a single message can reach millions, where video calls replace handshakes, and where your digital presence speaks before you do. The rules have changed, have you? Your grandmother's advice about first impressions was right. You never get a second chance to make one. But now those first impressions happen at the speed of light. Before you walk into the room, before you shake hands, before you even speak, your email signature creates an impression. Your video call background sends a message. Your response time communicates priority. Your social media posts reveal personality. Everything is communication now. Every pixel, every pause, every notification. And most people are getting it wrong. They treat digital communication like a lesser version of real communication. They type what they would never say face-to-face. They ignore online what they would address in person. They present digitally in ways they would never appear physically. But digital communication isn't communication light. It's communication amplified. More permanent, more public, more powerful. The stakes are higher, not lower. The standard should be stricter, not looser. The skills need to be sharper, not duller. Because in the digital age, communication isn't just what you do. It's who you are. Your reputation lives in the cloud. Your credibility travels at broadband speed. Your influence multiplies with every share, forward, and repost. Master digital communication, and you master modern influence. Ignore it, and you become irrelevant. It's that simple. Virtual presence mastery. The camera adds 10 pounds and subtracts 50% of your energy. That's the harsh reality of video calls. Everything that makes you compelling in person gets diluted through a screen. Your charisma gets compressed. Your energy gets filtered. Your presence gets pixelated. Unless you know how to fight back. The first battle is technical. Bad audio kills more meetings than bad ideas. Poor lighting makes you look tired, distracted, unprofessional. Unstable internet makes you seem unreliable. Get the basics right first. Invest in a decent headset. Position your camera at eye level. Find good lighting. Because if people are distracted by how you look or sound, they're not focused on what you're saying. But technical quality is just the foundation. The real challenge is energy translation. In person, your energy fills the room naturally. On video, you're competing with notifications, emails, other tabs, pets, kids, doorbells. You're a small rectangle fighting for attention against an entire world of distractions. This means you need to amplify everything by about 30%. 30% more energy, 30% more expression, 30% more intentionality. What feels over the top to you feels normal to them. Your gestures need to be bigger. Your voice needs more variation. Your facial expressions need more clarity. Your posture needs more intention. Think theater, not living room. You're performing now, whether you like it or not. The question is whether you're performing well or poorly. Eye contact becomes critical. But it's not eye contact with the screen. It's eye contact with the camera. That feels unnatural but creates connection. Look at the camera when you're making a key point. Look at the camera when you're asking a question. Look at the camera when you want to build trust. The screen is for listening. The camera is for connecting. Your environment communicates too. A messy background suggests disorganization. Poor lighting suggests lack of preparation. Constant interruptions suggest lack of respect. But perfect isn't the goal. Professional is the goal. Clean, well-lit, distraction-free. A space that says you take this seriously. The virtual background debate is real. Some love them. Some hate them. Some are indifferent. Here's the truth. They're tools. Use them when they help. Skip them when they don't. If your real background is cluttered or distracting, use a virtual one. If your lighting makes virtual backgrounds look weird, don't. If your computer can't handle the processing, stick with reality. The key is intentionality. Whatever you choose it on purpose. Don't let technology choose for you. Virtual presence also means managing the group dynamic. Mute when you're not talking. Unmute before you start talking. Use names when addressing specific people. Give people time to unmute before moving on. Pay attention to the gallery view. Watch for raised hands, confused faces, people checking out. Be more inclusive, not less. Digital communication can feel isolating. Your job is to make it feel connecting. And remember the power of the pause. Internet delay makes interruptions awkward. Leave more space between speakers. Let silence do its work. Don't rush to fill every gap. Virtual presence isn't about being perfect on camera. It's about being intentionally present through technology. About using digital tools to create human connection. About making people feel seen and heard, even through a screen. The speed of digital response. Every unanswered email is a conversation. Every delayed text is a statement. Every read receipt ignored is a message. You're always communicating, even when you're not. The speed of digital communication has created new expectations. Immediate acknowledgement, rapid responses, constant availability. And those expectations are reshaping professional relationships. But speed without strategy is just chaos. The goal isn't to respond to everything instantly. It's to respond to everything appropriately, with the right tone, timing, and attention level. Email has its own language now. Subject lines that work, opening lines that engage, closing lines that prompt action, length that respects time, formatting that aids comprehension. The subject line is your headline. Make it specific, actionable, scannable. Meeting tomorrow is weak. Action required. Budget approval by Friday, 3 p.m. is strong. The opening line sets the tone. Skip the generic pleasantries. Get to the point, but do it warmly. Hope you're doing well is filler. Thanks for your quick turnaround on Wednesday's proposal shows attention. Structure for skimming. Bullet points for multiple items. White space for visual breaks. Bold text for key information. Clear asks for required actions. Most people scan first, read second. Make scanning successful, and they'll read the details. Make scanning frustrating, and they'll delete without reading. The close determines the response. Vague closes get vague responses. Let me know what you think invites rambling. Please confirm by Tuesday whether option A, or B works better gets decisive action. Response time sends signals. Immediate responses suggest either efficiency or desperation. Delayed responses suggest either thoughtfulness or neglect. The key is consistency and communication. If you respond to some emails immediately and others after days, people notice. They start wondering what determines priority. They start reading meaning into timing. Better to set expectations up front. I'll get back to you by end of day. Friday manages expectations. Let me think about this and respond tomorrow morning shows consideration. Quick question followed by a quick response builds reliability. Text messaging has different rules. More casual, more immediate, more personal. But professional texting still requires professionalism. Full sentences aren't always necessary, but clarity always is. Autocorrect mistakes happen, but proofreading prevents most of them. Emoji can add warmth, but use them intentionally, not automatically. The read receipt creates obligation. If you read it, they know you read it. If you don't respond, they know you chose not to. This changes the social contract. Either turn off read receipts or commit to timely responses. Don't create anxiety unnecessarily. Group texts have their own dynamics. Reply to the group or reply individually. Add value or acknowledge receipt. Lead the conversation or follow along. The general rule, add value or stay quiet. Thanks doesn't need to go to the whole group. +1 doesn't advance the conversation. Great point. And here's another consideration. Does. Digital communication lacks tone indicators. Your intended tone might not match their received tone. Fine can sound passive-aggressive. Let's discuss can sound ominous. Quick question can sound urgent. Compensate with context. No problem at all. Happy to help instead of fine. Looking forward to exploring this together instead of let's discuss. When you have a moment, quick question instead of quick question. The goal is warmth without inefficiency. Clarity without coldness. Professionalism without formality. Human connection through digital efficiency. Social media wisdom. Your social media is your resume, reference check, and reputation rolled into one. Every post is a position statement. Every share is an endorsement. Every comment is a character reference. Every like is a tiny vote for who you are and what you value. And it's all permanent. Screenshots live forever. Deleted posts get cached. Private messages become public evidence. The internet never forgets, even when you want it to. This isn't about living in fear. It's about living with intention. About understanding that your digital footprint is your professional foundation. Professional doesn't mean boring. It means consistent with your values and goals. It means thinking before posting. It means considering how your content reflects on your character. The 3-filter test works for everything. Filter 1, is it true? Filter 2, is it helpful? Filter 3, is it kind? If it doesn't pass all 3, don't post it. LinkedIn is your professional showcase. Share insights, not just achievements. Comment thoughtfully on others' posts. Write articles that demonstrate expertise. Connect with purpose, not just to collect contacts. Your LinkedIn headline isn't your job title. It's your value proposition. Marketing manager is job title. Helping B2B companies double their lead generation is value proposition. Your posts should teach, inspire, or inform. Teaching builds authority. Inspiring builds connection. Informing builds trust. All 3 build influence. Twitter moves fast, but permanence is still permanent. Hot takes can burn your reputation. Sarcasm doesn't translate well. Arguments rarely end well. Restraint is wisdom. Instagram is about authenticity and aspiration. Show your work, not just your wins. Share your process, not just your products. Be human, not just professional, but keep it appropriate. The commenting challenge is real. Do you engage with controversial posts? Do you correct misinformation? Do you defend your positions? Do you ignore and move on? The answer depends on your goals and your audience. But always remember, you're building a brand. Every interaction either strengthens or weakens that brand. Engagement is a two-way street. Like and comment on others' content. Share valuable posts from your network. Tag people appropriately, not excessively. Respond to comments on your own posts. But avoid the engagement trap. Posting for likes instead of value. Chasing trends instead of staying authentic. Arguing with strangers instead of building relationships. Social media algorithms reward consistency and engagement. But human beings reward authenticity and value. Focus on the humans, not the algorithms. Privacy settings matter. Not everything needs to be public. Personal accounts can stay personal. Professional accounts should stay professional. Know the difference and maintain the boundaries. The platform matters less than the presence. Be where your audience is. Communicate in the style that fits the platform, but maintain consistent values across all platforms. Because people will find all your accounts. They'll compare your LinkedIn professional with your Twitter personality. They'll cross-reference your Instagram authenticity with your Facebook opinions. Consistency builds trust. Contradiction creates doubt. Your digital reputation is your most valuable professional asset. Protect it like you would protect your physical health. Invest in it like you would invest in your education. Maintain it like you would maintain your most important relationships. Because in the digital age, your online presence is your presence. Your digital words are your words. Your virtual character is your character. Hybrid communication. The future of communication isn't digital or in person. It's both. Seamlessly integrated, naturally flowing, strategically chosen. The best communicators don't pick sides. They pick the right tool for the right job. Some conversations belong on video calls. Complex discussions that need real-time feedback. Brainstorming sessions that build on energy. Relationship-building conversations that require human connection. Some conversations belong in email. Detailed information that people need to reference later. Complex proposals that require careful consideration. Updates that don't need immediate response. Some conversations belong in person. Difficult feedback that requires nuance. Sensitive topics that need trust. Celebrations that deserve presence. And some conversations belong on the phone. Quick questions that don't need video. Emotional discussions that benefit from voice tone. Multitasking situations where visual isn't necessary. The key is intentional channel selection. Don't default to your favorite medium. Choose the medium that serves the message. When you move between channels, maintain consistency. Your personality shouldn't change from email to video call. Your professionalism shouldn't vary from text to in-person. Your reliability shouldn't differ from platform to platform. But adapt your style to fit the medium. More formal in email, more conversational on video. More structured in presentations, more interactive in meetings. More detailed in writing, more energetic in person. The handoff between channels matters. Let's hop on a call to discuss. This acknowledges email limitations. I'll follow up with an email summary, ensures video call clarity. Can we meet in person for this? Recognizes topic sensitivity. Document the important stuff. Great video call? Send a summary email. Productive in-person meeting? Share key takeaways digitally. Important phone conversation? Follow up with written confirmation. This isn't about not trusting people's memory. It's about creating shared records and clear expectations. Time zones complicate hybrid communication. Asynchronous becomes essential. Clear handoffs become critical. Written communication becomes the bridge. I'm sending this email so you can respond when convenient for your time zone. Here's the video recording in case you can't join live. I'll be online from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. if you want to connect synchronously. Technology fails. Always have backups. Video call problems? Switch to phone. Internet issues? Move to text. Platform crashes? Use alternative tools. But also know when to postpone rather than compromise. Some conversations deserve full attention and optimal conditions. Don't sacrifice important discussions for convenience. Cultural differences amplify in hybrid communication. High-context cultures need more face-to-face time. Direct communication cultures work well with written updates. Relationship-focused cultures prioritize video over email. Adapt your hybrid approach to your audience. Not everyone communicates the same way. Not everyone has the same technology access. Not everyone has the same comfort levels. The goal is inclusive communication, making sure everyone can participate fully. Using technology to bridge gaps, not create them. Choosing channels that serve all participants, not just some. Hybrid communication is about flexibility. The flexibility to match method to message. The flexibility to adapt to circumstances. The flexibility to put communication effectiveness above personal preference. Master this flexibility, and you master modern communication. Because the future belongs to those who can connect anywhere, anytime, through any medium. With consistency, authenticity, and purpose. Your digital words are your digital DNA. They replicate, they endure, and they define you. Every message you send becomes part of your permanent record. Every post you publish becomes part of your public identity. Every digital interaction becomes part of your professional legacy. The tools have changed, but the fundamentals remain. Clarity still matters. Kindness still counts. Authenticity still attracts. Value still wins. Don't let the speed of digital communication compromise the quality of your character. Don't let the convenience of technology replace the thoughtfulness of good communication. Don't let the distance of screens diminish the humanity of your connections. Use technology to amplify your best self, not to hide behind convenience, not to avoid difficult conversations, not to replace genuine relationship building. The digital age hasn't changed what people need from communication. They still need to feel heard. They still need to feel valued. They still need to feel connected. Technology is just the delivery method. Your character is still the message. Your intentions are still what matter. Your impact is still what counts. But now that impact can reach further, last longer, and influence more people than ever before. Use that power wisely. Use it ethically. Use it to make the world a little more connected, a little more understanding, a little more human. Because digital communication isn't about the technology. It's about the humans behind the screens. And those humans are waiting for someone who communicates with purpose, authenticity, and care. That someone can be you. Chapter 7. Building your communication legacy. Every word you speak, every conversation you have, every connection you make contributes to your legacy. What story will your communication tell? Most people think legacy is something you leave behind when you're gone. But communication legacy? That's something you build every single day. With every email you send, every meeting you lead, every difficult conversation you navigate, every time someone walks away from talking with you feeling better than when they arrived. Your communication legacy isn't written in stone. It's written in memories. In the minds of colleagues who remember how you made them feel heard. In the careers of people you helped find their voice. In the teams that learned to collaborate because you showed them how. The question isn't whether you're building a communication legacy. You are, every day. The question is, what kind of legacy are you building? Are you the person who makes meetings better or worse? Who makes difficult conversations easier or harder? Who makes other people feel smarter or smaller? Because here's what nobody tells you about communication. The impact compounds. Every conversation builds on the last. Every interaction shapes the next. Every word you speak today influences how people receive your words tomorrow. Great communicators understand this. They know they're not just having conversations. They're building relationships. They're creating trust accounts. They're establishing patterns that will serve them for decades. This isn't about perfection. It's about intention, about showing up consistently, about treating every communication opportunity like it matters. Because it does. The compound effect of communication. Tiny improvements in how you communicate create massive changes in how you're perceived. It's like compound interest, but for relationships. A slightly warmer greeting each morning. Asking one more follow-up question in meetings. Taking an extra moment to craft clearer emails. These seem small, almost insignificant, but they compound. That warmer greeting? After a month, people start looking forward to seeing you. Those follow-up questions? After a few meetings, you become known as someone who really listens. Those clearer emails? After consistent practice, you become the person others trust with important communications. Small improvements, massive results. But it works in reverse too. Slightly dismissive responses compound into a reputation for being difficult. Consistently unclear instructions compound into a reputation for poor leadership. Regular interrupting compounds into a reputation for not valuing others' input. The compound effect doesn't discriminate. It amplifies whatever you're consistently doing. This is why great communicators obsess over the fundamentals. Not because any single conversation will make or break their career, but because the pattern of conversations will. Think about the people you most respect professionally. Chances are, they didn't earn that respect with one brilliant presentation. They earned it through hundreds of small interactions done well. The meeting where they stayed calm under pressure. The email where they explained complex ideas simply. The conversation where they gave difficult feedback with genuine care. The presentation where they connected with every person in the room. One by one, these moments built something bigger. A reputation, a brand, a legacy. The ripple effect is real too. When you communicate well with one person, they notice. When you do it consistently, they talk about it. When you do it across all your interactions, it becomes your reputation. People start coming to you for difficult conversations. Leaders start including you in important meetings. Opportunities start finding you instead of you chasing them. Because great communication creates trust. And trust creates opportunity. And opportunity creates career acceleration. But here's the part most people miss. The compound effect works on teams too. When you consistently communicate well, you don't just improve your own reputation. You improve the communication culture around you. Your colleagues start modeling your behavior. Meetings become more productive. Projects run more smoothly. Conflicts get resolved faster. You become a communication catalyst. Not just communicating well yourself, but making everyone around you communicate better. This is how communication legends are made. Not through single moments of brilliance, but through consistent moments of excellence. Compound interest for your career. Small deposits, massive returns. Start today. Pick one small improvement. Make it consistently. Watch it compound. Developing your voice. Your communication voice isn't just how you sound. It's how you think out loud. How you process ideas in real time. How you make others feel when they interact with you. How you show up when the stakes are high. Everyone has a natural communication style. Some people are naturally direct. Others are naturally diplomatic. Some people think out loud. Others process internally first. Some people use stories. Others use data. There's no single right way to communicate, but there's a right way for you. The key is finding your authentic voice and then developing it intentionally. Not changing who you are, but becoming the best version of who you are. Your authentic voice has 3 components. What comes naturally to you? What serves your goals? What connects with your audience? The sweet spot is where all 3 overlap. If something comes naturally but doesn't serve your goals, it's self-indulgent. If something serves your goals but doesn't come naturally, it's exhausting. If something connects with your audience but doesn't serve your goals, it's distraction. But when all three align, that's when you find your power. Maybe you're naturally analytical. Your goal is to influence decisions, and your audience respects data-driven arguments. Your voice becomes clear, logical, evidence-based communication. Maybe you're naturally empathetic. Your goal is to build relationships, and your audience values personal connection. Your voice becomes warm, inclusive, story-driven communication. Maybe you're naturally energetic. Your goal is to inspire action, and your audience responds to enthusiasm. Your voice becomes passionate, motivating, vision-focused communication. The mistake most people make is trying to be everything to everyone. Analytical when they think data is needed. Empathetic when they think relationships matter. Energetic when they think motivation is required. But switching styles constantly makes you seem inconsistent. Inauthentic. Hard to read. Better to develop one strong voice that you can adapt slightly for different situations. Consistency builds trust. People know what to expect from you. They know how you think, how you process, how you respond. This predictability becomes your brand. But consistency doesn't mean rigidity. Your voice should evolve as you grow. As you gain experience, your communication should become more nuanced. As you take on more responsibility, your voice should carry more authority. As you work with different audiences, your voice should become more adaptable. Think of it like a musician developing their sound. They start with their natural talent and preferences. They practice the fundamentals relentlessly. They experiment with different styles and techniques. But eventually, they develop a distinctive sound that's unmistakably theirs. Your communication voice works the same way. Start with what comes naturally. Master the fundamentals we've covered in previous chapters. Experiment with different approaches in low-stakes situations. Pay attention to what works and what doesn't. Refine based on feedback and results. Over time, you'll develop a communication signature, a way of speaking, listening, and connecting that's distinctly yours, that people recognize and respond to. That opens doors and creates opportunities. Your voice is your competitive advantage, not because it's better than everyone else's, but because it's authentically yours. And authenticity is magnetic. People are drawn to communicators who know who they are and aren't trying to be someone else, who have something unique to offer, who bring their whole selves to their communication. Find your voice. Develop it. Trust it. Let be your guide. Mentoring others. The true test of your communication skills isn't how well you communicate. It's how well you help others communicate. Great communicators don't just excel individually. They elevate everyone around them. They become communication multipliers. Their influence extends far beyond their own conversations. This happens naturally when you've mastered the fundamentals. People start asking for your advice. They want to know how you stay calm in difficult conversations, how you explain complex ideas so clearly, how you build rapport so quickly. This is your opportunity to create a legacy bigger than yourself. Teaching communication skills is different from teaching technical skills. You can't just explain the theory. You have to model the behavior. Show people what good communication looks and feels like. Lead by example first. When you're in meetings with junior colleagues, demonstrate active listening. When you're giving feedback, show them how to be direct and kind simultaneously. When you're presenting, let them see how you connect with your audience. They're watching how you handle interruptions, how you respond to criticism, how you navigate disagreements, how you ask questions, how you follow up on commitments. Every interaction is a teaching moment, not in a heavy-handed way, but in a natural, authentic way that shows them what's possible. Then create opportunities for them to practice. Let them lead parts of meetings. Ask them to present updates to the team. Include them in client conversations. Give them chances to facilitate discussions. But don't throw them in the deep end. Start with low-stakes situations. Build their confidence gradually. Be there to support them when things get challenging. Feedback becomes crucial here. Most people get very little specific feedback about their communication. They know when a conversation goes well or poorly, but they don't always know why. Help them see the patterns. You did a great job staying calm when John challenged your proposal. That helped keep the conversation productive. I noticed you asked 3 follow-up questions before sharing your opinion. That showed real listening. Your opening was strong, but I think you could have been more direct about what you needed from the team. Specific, actionable, timely feedback. Focused on behavior, not personality. Balance between what's working and what could improve. Create a safe space for them to experiment. Let them know it's okay to try new approaches. That mistakes are part of learning. That you're there to help them grow, not judge their performance. Some of the best learning happens when things don't go perfectly. When they stumble through a difficult conversation. When their presentation doesn't land as expected. When they misread the room. These moments become powerful teaching opportunities. If you handle them with care and wisdom, help them reflect on what happened. What worked? What didn't? What would they do differently? What did they learn about themselves or their audience? Don't fix everything for them. Help them develop their own problem-solving skills, their own ability to read situations and adapt, their own confidence in navigating complex communication challenges. The goal isn't to create mini versions of yourself. It's to help them find their own authentic voice, their own communication style, their own way of connecting with others. When you do this well, something beautiful happens. They don't just become better communicators. They become communication mentors themselves. The skills and mindset you've shared with them get passed on to others. Your communication legacy multiplies, extends beyond your direct influence, creates ripple effects you may never even know about. This is how communication cultures change. One person teaching another. One conversation improving the next. One generation of leaders developing the next. Your technical skills might become obsolete. Your industry knowledge might become outdated. But the communication skills you pass on, those last forever. Continuous evolution. The moment you think you've mastered communication is the moment you start falling behind. Communication is a moving target. New technologies emerge. Generational preferences shift. Cultural norms evolve. What worked perfectly 5 years ago might feel outdated today. Great communicators stay curious. They remain students, even as they become teachers. They adapt without losing their authentic core. This doesn't mean chasing every trend or changing your communication style with every new platform. It means staying aware of how communication is evolving and thoughtfully integrating what serves your goals. Pay attention to generational differences. Millennials might prefer detailed email explanations. Gen Z might want quick video messages. Gen X might value direct phone calls. Boomers might appreciate formal written proposals. None of these preferences are absolute, but understanding tendencies helps you connect more effectively. Adapt your delivery method without changing your message quality. Technology will keep changing the tools available to you. Virtual reality meetings might become commonplace. AI might help you craft better messages. New platforms might emerge that change how we connect. Stay open to these changes. Experiment with new tools when they serve your communication goals. But remember, the fundamentals remain constant. Clarity, empathy, authenticity, and connection. These don't become obsolete. They just get expressed through different mediums. Keep learning from other great communicators. Read books, listen to podcasts, watch presentations. Not to copy their style, but to expand your toolkit. To see different approaches to the same challenges you face. Pay attention to communicators outside your industry. Politicians understand persuasion. Teachers understand explanation. Therapists understand listening. Comedians understand timing and audience connection. Sales professionals understand influence. Each field has developed specialized communication skills. Skills you can adapt for your own purposes. Seek feedback constantly, not just from your boss or your team, from your customers, your peers, your mentors, from people who see you communicate in different contexts. Ask specific questions. What's one thing I could do to make my presentations more engaging? How could I have handled that difficult conversation better? What's my biggest communication blind spot? The answers might surprise you. The feedback might sting a little, but it will make you better. Practice in low-stakes environments. Join a book club to practice discussion facilitation. Volunteer to give presentations at community organizations. Take improv classes to work on thinking on your feet. Record yourself giving practice presentations. Create opportunities to stretch your communication muscles, to try new approaches, to fail safely and learn from the experience. Reflect regularly on your communication patterns. What situations still make you nervous? What types of conversations do you avoid? Where do you default to old habits instead of applying new skills? Self-awareness is the foundation of continuous improvement. You can't change what you don't notice. You can't improve what you don't acknowledge. Set communication goals, not just career goals. This year, I want to become more comfortable with conflict. I want to improve my ability to influence without authority. I want to develop my skills at facilitating team discussions. Specific, measurable communication objectives, with action plans and progress milestones. Treat communication development like any other professional skill. The learning never stops, but that's what makes it exciting. Every conversation is a chance to apply something new. Every interaction is an opportunity to get a little bit better. Great communicators embrace this continuous evolution. They see it as an adventure, not a burden. They know that staying curious keeps them relevant, that staying flexible keeps them effective, that staying humble keeps them growing. Communication mastery isn't a destination. It's a direction, a commitment to lifelong learning and improvement, a promise to never stop growing. Legacy statement. Great communicators aren't born. They're forged through practice, refined through experience, and polished through reflection. Every expert was once a beginner. Every smooth presentation was once a nervous ramble. Every skilled negotiator once stumbled through difficult conversations. Every inspiring leader once struggled to find their voice. The difference isn't natural talent. It's commitment to growth, willingness to be uncomfortable, dedication to continuous improvement. Your communication legacy starts today, with the next conversation you have, the next email you send, the next meeting you attend. It's built one interaction at a time. One moment of choosing courage over comfort. One instance of choosing clarity over confusion. One decision to connect rather than just communicate. The tools and techniques we've covered in this audiobook, they're not magic formulas. They're not quick fixes. They're not shortcuts to success. They're building blocks, foundation stones for a communication legacy worth leaving. Skills that compound over time into something extraordinary. But knowledge without action is just entertainment. Insight without implementation is just information. Learning without practicing is just procrastination. The question isn't whether you now know how to communicate better. The question is whether you'll choose to do it. Will you speak up in that meeting where your input could make a difference? Will you have that difficult conversation you've been avoiding? Will you take the time to really listen when someone needs to be heard? Will you choose courage when it's easier to stay quiet? Will you choose clarity when it's tempting to be vague? Will you choose connection when it's safer to stay distant? Your communication legacy isn't written by what you know. It's written by what you do, how you show up, how you make others feel, how you use your voice to make the world a little bit better. Think fast, talk smart. But more importantly, communicate with purpose. Connect with intention. Leave conversations better than you found them. That's a legacy worth building. That's a story worth telling. That's a life of communication worth living. Your legacy starts now. Conclusion. You've just completed a transformation. You now possess the mental framework, emotional intelligence, and practical tools to think fast and talk smart in any situation. But knowledge without action is just entertainment. Let's be honest about what just happened here. 3 hours ago, you started this journey as one person. You're finishing it as someone different. You now know how to read a room in seconds, how to turn anxiety into clarity under pressure, how to handle difficult people without losing your cool, how to make your ideas stick in people's minds. You understand the psychology of persuasion, the art of active listening, the science of clear communication, the strategy behind confident presence. You've learned to navigate digital communication like a pro, to build relationships that open doors, to leave every conversation better than you found it. But here's the thing about transformation. It only counts if you use it. Right now, all of this is potential energy, stored knowledge waiting to become kinetic action. The difference between who you were and who you can become. But potential energy without motion remains potential forever. So here's your challenge. Your first test. Your moment of truth. I challenge you to use one technique from this audiobook in your very next conversation. Maybe it's the 3-second pause before responding. Maybe it's asking a follow-up question instead of jumping to your own story. Maybe it's using someone's name when you address them. Maybe it's matching their energy level instead of imposing your own. Pick one technique. Just one. Use it intentionally. Then notice. Notice how it feels inside your body. Notice the subtle shift in your confidence. Notice how the other person responds differently. Notice the change in the conversation's quality. Because that's when the magic happens. When knowledge becomes experience. When theory becomes reality. When you realize you actually can do this. That first successful application builds belief. Belief builds confidence. Confidence builds competence. Competence builds your reputation. Your reputation builds your future. It all starts with that first intentional choice. That first moment of applying what you've learned. That first step from knowing to doing. And once you start, you won't want to stop. Because here's what happens when you master these skills. Doors open that were previously closed. Opportunities find you instead of you chasing them. People seek your opinion, your leadership, your guidance. Conflicts become conversations. Presentations become performances. Meetings become moments of influence. You don't just participate in discussions. You elevate them. You don't just communicate your ideas. You make others feel heard while you're doing it. Remember, the person who can think quickly and communicate clearly doesn't just succeed. They inspire others to reach their potential. You have that power now. Use it wisely. Use it to build bridges, not walls. Use it to solve problems, not create them. Use it to lift others up, not tear them down. Because great communication isn't just about getting what you want. It's about helping others get what they need. It's about creating value in every interaction. It's about making the world a little more connected. You have that ability now. The frameworks to think clearly under pressure. The skills to connect authentically with anyone. The confidence to speak up when it matters. Don't let it sit unused. Don't let it become another thing you learned but never applied. Don't let this be entertainment instead of transformation. If this audiobook has added value to your life, take 30 seconds to subscribe to our channel and share it with someone who needs these skills. Your support helps us create more transformative content. Think about the people in your life who struggle with communication, who get nervous before presentations, who avoid difficult conversations, who have great ideas but can't express them clearly. Share this with them. not because you get something out of it, but because they deserve to have these tools too. Communication skills are too important to keep to yourself. They're meant to be shared, practiced, and spread. Ready for more? Check out our productivity and focus series to continue building the mental tools that make you unstoppable in any professional situation. Because thinking fast and talking smart is just the beginning. There's so much more potential to unlock, so many more skills to develop, so many more ways to grow. But for now, you have everything you need: the knowledge, the tools, the techniques. Most importantly, you have the choice. Until next time, remember, every conversation is an opportunity. Every word is a choice. Every choice shapes your future. Choose wisely. Now go out there and show the world what you're capable of. Think fast. Talk smart. Make it count.